Hey everybody, it's Mr. Mott. What I want to do is introduce this idea of dimensional analysis for you using something that you might be familiar with, a recipe. This recipe is for spice nut cake. It's actually a legitimate recipe, and if you like something that's a little bit sweet but not too sweet, this is a great recipe. Of course, if you have some nut allergies, you can always leave out the walnuts. But let's go and let's talk about what recipes, what information that they have on here, and sort of how they work. So all recipes tell you how many servings that they're going to make. So enough for this one serves 12, so 12 people. And then in the body here, what we've got is the amounts of everything that you would need. And then on the left-hand side, we have a baking table. The baking table, if you were going to be using a kitchen scale, which is sort of more and more often here and available, then and you need to weigh things out in grams, you would need to use the baking table. All right. So what we're going to investigate here is what if we needed to change our recipe. So if we only wanted to make enough for 6 people, what we would need to do is, since our recipe calls for 12, we would cut all of our ingredients in half. So we'd have 1 cup of flour, half a cup of sugar, half a teaspoon of baking powder, and so on. If we needed to double our servings, we would double our recipe. All right. For the rest of these, we're going to be using dimensional analysis for some of these problems where they're not so straightforward, like doubling or halving and things like that. So our first question says, what if we have 5 eggs? So if we have 5 eggs, we want to know how many servings we could make. Now, one of the things that we're assuming is that we only have 5 eggs. However, we have more than enough of all of these other ingredients. All right. So what we're going to do, or start out our problem here, I'm going to write down my given information, which is 5 eggs. And I'm going to have a conversion factor that I multiply by. And I'm going to multiply by something that relates eggs and servings. And if we have one conversion factor or one relationship, then we only need one of these conversion factors. So I see that in my recipe for every 3 eggs, I can make 12 servings. So I'm going to put, in the way that dimensional analysis works, is that I'm going to take these units of eggs and we're going to put them on the bottom. And then the thing that I want to find out is servings. And so servings is going to go here. And then as far as the units, then those units go on the top. And so I can do this because I know there's a direct relationship between, say, eggs and serving. So I just need one conversion factor. Now, from the recipe, for every 12 servings, I'm going to make 3 eggs. All right. Now, the way that this dimensional analysis works is that the eggs, these units of eggs are canceling. So algebraically, it's sort of like I have one variable on top and the same variable on the bottom, like x over x would cancel. All right. The units that I have left, which is servings, that's what I want to find out. So I know that I'm sort of done doing my math portion of this. Now, how does the math work here? Well, everything in the numerator you multiply, everything in the denominator you divide. So what I would put into my calculator would be 5 times 12 and then divide by 3. So my mental math right here, if I work that out, it should equal 20 servings, and that would be my answer. All right. Let's go on to another couple problems here. This one's saying, what if I have 450 grams of flour? How many servings could I make? And again, we're assuming that's all the flour we have. We want to use it up. And we have way more of the other ingredients than we would possibly use. All right. So when I start out my conversion factor, I need to have grams of flour down here on the bottom. And one thing that always helps me is that I'm putting my same units in here first before I try to put any numbers. All right. We're going to go up to our baking table. That's where I'm going to see my grams. So I go on the top left here. So I know that from the up here in the top left, 1 cup is 100 grams for our flour. So I have a relationship here where there, for every 100 grams, there's 1 cup of flour. Now we can see that if I cancel out some units here, my grams of flour are canceling. The units that I want are servings, but the units I have left here are cups of flour, so I know I'm not quite done yet. All right, so we need to have another conversion factor here that relates flour, cups of flour, to servings. And we do have that available to us. So let's go up to our recipe here. But again, the idea, these units are going to sort of cross out on the diagonal here, just like our grams of flour canceled. All right, so cups of flour are going to cancel. Let's find our numbers. Again, our recipe calls for 2 cups of flour for every 12 servings. So that's our conversion factor that we're going to use. So I'm going to go 12 servings on top and then 2 cups of flour. And in terms of my canceling, my cups of flour are canceling. And then let's see, the units I want are servings, so I know I'm done. That's awesome. Let's do the math portion then. So then mathematically, what's going to happen, I'm going to go 450. I'm going to put the 1 in there just so, I know multiplying or dividing by 1 isn't going to change anything. However, I just want to account for all the numbers that are there. So then what I would do is I would multiply everything in the numerator and then divide by the denominator. So I'm going to go 450 times 12 divided by 100 divided by 2. All right, and if my math is correct here, my answer would be 27 servings. And of course, it doesn't matter when we're multiplying or dividing the order in which you put these in your calculator, but definitely be mindful that, we want to say divided by 100 or divided by 2. You could also have done the top and then done the bottom and then divided both of those. So lots of ways to get at the calculating part. All right. Last one we'll try. It says, if we have 225 grams of eggs, how many dozens of servings could we make? So let's give it a try. We're going to start out with our given information, 225 grams of eggs. And sometimes we're never sure how many conversion factors we need, but we definitely want to put that we're looking for dozens of servings here. All right. Now, dimensional analysis leads us on this roadmap here. I need to have grams of eggs on the bottom of this conversion factor so that those units cancel. So let's go up to our recipe and see what it tells us about grams of eggs. So let's see here. So for my grams of eggs, here we have it. 1 gram or 1 egg, is 95 grams. So I'm going to go 95 grams on the bottom for every 1 egg. And then we can cancel out our units if we like. Grams of eggs are canceling. We know that we need to have in our next conversion factor, eggs are going to go on the bottom because we want these units to cancel out again on the diagonal. So now we can go up to our regular recipe and see what it tells us about how many eggs we need. So in our regular recipe here, it says we need 3 eggs. And again, that's going to be for 12 servings. So 3 eggs for 12 servings. So 3 eggs, I'll put that in there for 12 servings. Now, if we stopped here, let's go ahead and cancel our units out, by the way. My eggs are canceling there. If we stopped here, we would actually be at servings instead of dozens of servings. So we're going to have to kind of go off script and put a conversion factor in here that, or counting ratio that is not in our recipe, but just one that applies to everything because we know that a dozen is 12 of anything. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to add in that I'm going to go servings and then dozen up here. And then I'm going to put for every 1 dozen, there's 12 servings. All right. And so let's cancel out some units here. Servings are going to cancel. And I'm left with dozens, which is what we want. All right, let's see about the math then. All right. So now this is kind of something that is kind of nice. You may have noticed, for instance, I got 12 on top and 12 on the bottom. So if you recognize that that's going to cancel, you can leave it out of your math. But just to show where all the numbers are going to go, it would be 225. Oops. 225 times 1 times 12 times 1. That's the numerator. Denominator is 95, 3, and 12. And again, we can see we could cross out those 12s if we wanted to. But either way, we're just going to do our calculation. And let's see what we come up with. So if we crossed out these just to make our lives a little bit easier, it would be 225 divided by 95 divided by 3. And I'm getting 0.79 dozen servings. All right. And kind of a weird number there, but that would be our answer. All right. Thanks for watching.